Imagine yourself in a colossal playground. Its vibrant colors and cheerful designs, a jarring contrast to the reality unfolding within. You're surrounded by strangers, each with desperate eyes and a sense of hollow determination, all bonded by crushing debt and the last gasp of hope for redemption. Suddenly, the innocent childhood game of red light, green light turns into a nightmare as bodies collapse around you, each shot fired in cold precision. This is the world of the Squid Game, a brutal, unforgiving mirror held up to our society's dark obsession with money, survival, and power. The Squid Game isn't just another thriller with life and death stakes. It's an examination of human nature laid bare, under conditions of extreme pressure and moral decay. Here we'll analyze the characters who populate this world, dissect the societal structures that push them into this hellish scenario, and dive into the philosophical questions that haunt viewers long after the credits roll. The true horror of the Squid Game lies in its emotional brutality woven through every frame. This isn't a horror with ghouls and jump scares, it's something far more unsettling. Here, terror is born within the players' fragile minds, haunted not by monsters but by their own desperation. In the first game, Red Light, Green Light, what seems innocent, a game directed by a giant doll, swiftly mutates into a nightmare as players who move even a fraction of an inch are cut down by hidden snipers, their bodies falling like rag dolls, one after another. The field erupts in chaos, players screaming, clawing for any way out, only to be gunned down in cold, mechanical succession. We watch horrified as people confront the terrifying realization of their mortality in real time. The contrast between the childlike setting and the brutal, remorseless violence shreds any semblance of innocence. It's a grotesque reminder of how little control we have over the forces shaping us from childhood, trauma, financial burdens, head starts, or lack thereof, that silently dictate our lives before we can even understand them. We're spectators to the perversion of childhood games where losing costs your life. A reminder that in a world consumed by survival, innocence is the first sacrifice. Each character in the Squid Game represents a distinct portrait of financial desperation and moral ambiguity, each bringing their unique form of brokenness into the arena. Song Gi-hun, the series protagonist, starts as a morally ambiguous man, a gambling addict who borrows money from loan sharks, even risking his own daughter's future to feed his addiction. His financial ruin is self-inflicted, yet it also mirrors the desperation of the working class, who are one bad choice away from complete ruin. Gi-hun's evolution from a desperate man to a reluctant survivor highlights the ethical sacrifices forced upon him as he clings to life amidst the carnage. Then there's Cho Sang-woo, a former investment prodigy whose journey is perhaps the most tragic and morally complex. Sang-woo begins as a calculating, intelligent man who represents Korea's ideal of academic success. However, he hides a crippling debt from his family, stemming from failed investments and fraud. In the marble game, where players are paired with their closest companions, Sang-woo's betrayal of Ali, a migrant worker who trusted him implicitly, is perhaps one of the series' most gut-wrenching moments.
Here, I'll make sure that it's safe, okay?
Sang-woo tricks Ali, swapping his marbles for rocks, leaving Ali to his death. It's an act that reveals the depths to which financial ruin can push a person, transforming loyalty into betrayal.
Make a big thing about it. I knew it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart.
Sang-woo is the living embodiment of what happens when one's ambition is poisoned by desperation, willing to sacrifice others to claw his way back to financial stability.
Well, I made absolutely sure no harm was done.
Player 199 eliminated.
Kang Se-byok, a North Korean defector, offers a heartbreaking look at survival as a duty rather than a choice. Her drive isn't for personal wealth, but to rescue her family from North Korea. She's stoic, cautious, and skilled, qualities that have kept her alive in a life riddled with tragedy. Her guarded nature is shattered in the marble game, where she bonds with Ji Young, a young woman who offers her a rare moment of connection.
I'm honored that we were partners.
Se-byuk's vulnerability in this game is fleeting, yet it serves as a poignant reminder of the humanity crushed under the weight of survival.
Player 240 eliminated.
Ali, the migrant worker, represents those on the fringes of society who are exploited and discarded. His trust in Sang-woo and subsequent betrayal isn't just an act of naivety, it's a tragic commentary on the exploitation of the vulnerable by those in power. His demise is a bitter pill that underscores the devastating reality faced by those who are powerless. Each character's trajectory within the Squid Game lays bare the moral compromises and ethical decay inherent in survival under extreme conditions. They are broken souls reduced to their basest instincts, yet each carries a sliver of humanity that makes their sacrifices all the more horrifying. The Squid Game resonates globally, but in South Korea, it hits home with a piercing urgency. Following the miracle on the Han River, a period of rapid post-war industrialization, South Korea went from poverty to a booming economy in record time. This miraculous growth was double-edged, creating one of the largest wealth gaps in the world. Recent data shows that the top 10% of Koreans control over half of the nation's wealth, while housing prices soar and high-interest loans anchor families into decades of debt. Young adults face a stifling future, burdened by student debt and sky-high property costs, with little relief in sight. These realities are encapsulated in the desperation of the Squid Game, where characters claw at a slim chance of financial freedom, only to be reminded that the system itself is rigged against them. This economic frustration has given rise to the term Hell Joseon, describing South Korea's unforgiving social landscape, where intense competition has bred a generation, the Inpo generation, who have been forced to give up marriage, family, even friendships in a relentless struggle for survival. These pressures bleed into the very fabric of the Squid Game, where characters like Gi-hun are trapped in cycles of gambling and debt, his life slipping through his fingers as he competes against others in grotesque, childlike games. The participants, debt-laden and hopeless, are left in a dystopian parody of everyday life, clawing for resources they'll likely never attain. Films like Parasite confront similar themes. In one of the film's most harrowing scenes, the impoverished Kim family wades through their flooded basement apartment as sewage and floodwater fill every corner, a visceral reminder of how close they live to the edge. Meanwhile, the wealthy Park family, miles away, sits oblivious in their sprawling home, insulated from even the thought of hardship. This scene mirrors the divide in the Squid Game, where the VIPs, rich and massed, look down at the competitors as mere entertainment, detached from any empathy. They watch the players' agony with the same idle amusement one might watch a game, insulated by their wealth, which has removed them entirely from the experience of suffering. In this, the Squid Game and Parasite lay bare the existential horror of a society that equates worth with financial success, where survival has been commodified for those privileged enough to escape it. While the Squid Game has garnered praise for its stark social commentary, it has also faced criticism for its graphic violence and portrayal of human suffering. Some argue that the show commodifies poverty, turning financial desperation into a spectacle for viewers. However, this critique overlooks the intentionality of the show's brutality. The violence is not gratuitous. It's a mirror to the societal indifference toward the suffering of the financially vulnerable. The show doesn't glamorize violence. It presents it as raw, grotesque, and deeply unsettling. By doing so, it forces viewers to confront the uncomfortable truth that, in a society that treats wealth as the ultimate goal, the suffering of the poor becomes an afterthought. Each death in the game is a reflection of society's disregard for those who have fallen behind, a point that critics miss when they reduce the show to mere shock value. Alright, let's dive into this with the same existential dread that wraps around the ultra-rich like a velvet shroud, suffocating them with every soft and meaningless possession they own. In the final episode of Squid Game, One Lucky Day, we see the reveal of Il Nam, the frail yet oddly amused elderly contestant we thought was just a pawn like everyone else. But no, he's the puppet master, the architect behind a game so cruel it only makes sense when you realize that he, with his billions, has long since lost touch with any real sense of humanity. At one point, Il Nam drops a line to Seong Gi-hun that's loaded with eerie clarity. Do you know what someone with no money has in common with someone with too much money? Living is no fun for them. Here we have it, a billionaire's confession, as bleak as it is revealing. Poverty is often painted in shades of desperation, hunger, and lack, but the obscenely wealthy experience a different kind of starvation, a famine of meaning. When you've bought everything there is to buy, tasted every wine, eaten in every Michelin-starred restaurant, existence itself becomes a dull grind. For Il Nam, life has become one endless, bland banquet, and the thrill of survival can only be rekindled by watching others cling to it desperately. Il Nam's story is reminiscent of Daniel Plainview in There Will Be Blood, a man so consumed by the pursuit of wealth and power that by the time he gets everything he wanted, he's utterly alone. Plainview's famous line,
I have a competition in me. I want no one else to succeed. I hate most people.
encapsulates this grotesque hunger, this need to have more, even when there's nothing left to gain. It's the kind of ambition that gnaws at you, stripping away your humanity piece by piece until you're little more than an embodiment of greed. By the time Plainview reaches the end, isolated in his mansion, he's more ghost than man, a living monument to the self-destruction wealth can bring.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up!
Don't bully me, Daniel!
Il Nam and Plainview share a tragic irony. They pursued power, wealth, and influence, only to find themselves ensnared by the very things they thought would free them.
Dance and your superstition would help you, Eli! I am the third revelation. I am who the Lord has chosen.
In Squid Game, Il Nam tries to explain himself to Gi-hun, noting that if you have too much money, no matter what you buy, eat, or drink, everything gets boring in the end. The notion of boredom here is key. It's not just a lack of excitement. It's a hollowing out of the soul, a kind of spiritual erosion that no amount of money can fill. Think about Charles Foster Kane in Citizen Kane. The man spends his life accumulating wealth, art, even people, as if each acquisition will somehow stave off the inevitable emptiness creeping up inside him. His famous last word, reflects a deep yearning for something lost, a simpler time, an innocence money could never buy back. Kane, like Il Nam, is trapped in a cage of his own making, his soul hollowed out by the endless chase for more. He's rich beyond imagination, but every dollar serves as a reminder of the things he's lost in the pursuit of a happiness that always slips just out of reach. What's truly unsettling about Il Nam, though, is his complete detachment from empathy. For him, the contestants are just characters in his play, their lives inconsequential beyond the entertainment they bring. This detachment brings to mind Patrick Bateman in American Psycho, another character numbed by wealth and privilege. Bateman is so desensitized to human emotion that he finds joy in violence, viewing people as objects rather than individuals. His infamous line,
"There is an idea of a Patrick Bateman, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me, only an entity, something illusory. And though I can hide my cold gaze, and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I simply am not there."
speaks to a core emptiness that defines his existence. He's not a real person, just an amalgamation of desires, a shell filled with greed and hunger for power. But it's not just fictional characters that serve as cautionary tales about the dangers of wealth. In reality, we see the same themes play out again and again. Billionaires isolated in mansions, surrounded by staff, but with no genuine human connections. They're insulated from the struggles of everyday life, living in a reality so removed from the common experience that they might as well be on another planet. They have the power to change the world, yet they remain spectators, sometimes even exploiters, of suffering. This detachment brings us back to Ilnam's chilling observation that life has become boring for him. When you no longer have to worry about survival, about making rent or feeding your family, the struggle that gives life meaning fades. And so Ilnam creates a game to fill that void, a brutal, twisted reflection of the survival struggle he no longer experiences. He watches as people fight, betray, and even kill to survive, a morbid theater that reminds him of a life he's forgotten. This is what wealth has done to him. It has made him a spectator in the human experience, someone who has lost so much empathy that he's willing to gamble with people's lives just to feel something again. The structure of the Squid Game is a blunt allegory for capitalism, where each game is a microcosm of a society that pits individuals against each other for a chance at financial security. The games operate on the principle that success is a zero-sum game. For one person to win, others must lose.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right.
In the tug-of-war game, where players pull against each other in a deadly contest, the show lays bare the concept that in a capitalist society, one's survival often comes at the expense of others. The final showdown between Gi-hun and Sang-woo is a brutal representation of this theme. Sang-woo, who began as a rational, calculating figure, descends into a violent, desperate man willing to sacrifice anything for victory. Their fight is symbolic of the cutthroat competition inherent in capitalism, where friendship, loyalty, and humanity are casualties in the pursuit of wealth. Imagine us thousands of years ago, huddled in caves, gripping sticks and stones, eyes wide against the dark, primal brains on high alert. We were creatures of instinct, survival etched into our very bones. Back then, survival was straightforward: hunger, danger, safety, shelter. Fast forward a few millennia, and here we are, playing out survival dramas like Squid Game on big screens, watching people claw for cash like our ancestors clawed for fire. It's fascinating, isn't it? Our ape brains haven't changed all that much. We still have the primal wiring for survival, competition, and fear. But what happens when you throw modern wealth and civilization into the mix? You get a world where survival isn't just about food or shelter, but about status, money, and power. Instead of battling saber-toothed tigers, we're battling credit scores, career hierarchies, and economic ladders. Somewhere along the line, our survival instincts got a lot more complicated and a lot darker. And this is where it gets troubling. Watching Squid Game, we see that wealth and power, rather than eliminating the survival instinct, have transformed it into something unrecognizable. The VIPs in the show don't hunt for food, they hunt for entertainment, deriving pleasure from the desperation of others.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
What does it say about us that even with our advanced society, our brains are still wired to watch people struggle and root for blood? Have we really evolved, or have we just dressed up our primal instincts in nicer suits? What's disturbing is that we're still, on some level, entertained by the struggle, the same way we would have gathered to watch a hunt in the ancient savannas. Only now, we're doing it from plush seats, feeling secure in our lives while others suffer for a chance at survival. Maybe we're not that different from our ancestors. Maybe, despite all our progress, we're still just apes with screens, hungry for drama, obsessed with survival. But here's the real question. Is it survival we're after, or have we just become voyeurs of desperation? Squid Game is more than a twisted series of children's games. It's a brutal, metaphor-packed dissection of society itself. Each game is a dark mirror, reflecting our worst tendencies and most desperate realities. With each round, contestants inch closer to a truth that's as old as human history. Survival isn't just brutal, it's a game, and society is stacked against most of us. Red light, green light, the illusion of innocence and the tyranny of control. The first game, red light, green light, seems deceptively simple. A children's game where contestants freeze at the command of a robotic doll. But in Squid Game, failing to stop on time means instant death. The field becomes a graveyard, bodies dropping as snipers mow down those who fail to keep still. Historically, red light, green light was a universal game, an innocent test of reaction and obedience for children. Yet here, it's transformed into a grotesque symbol of authoritarian control. Think Orwellian. Under the guise of rules and order, disobedience or imperfection means annihilation. In red light, green light, the players find themselves under surveillance, forced to adapt to the rules set by an indifferent system. A chilling reminder of totalitarian states where surveillance, obedience, and punishment were commonplace. In Stalin's Russia, Mao's China, or Hitler's Germany, even the slightest misstep or non-compliance could mean death. The game's bright, childlike atmosphere is the worst kind of irony, a reminder that totalitarianism doesn't come with ominous warnings. It often arrives with a smiling face and a command to play by the rules. Honeycomb, the arbitrary nature of privilege. The honeycomb game, or dalgona, has players etching shapes into fragile sugar candies without cracking them. Here, life and death rest on luck. Some players get easy circles, others complex umbrellas. Historically, dalgona candies were a street treat in Korea, and kids would often attempt to carve out shapes for fun, hoping to keep the candy intact. In Squid Game, however, these delicate shapes become metaphors for privilege. Some people are born into wealth, represented by simpler shapes. Others are handed the umbrella, a life of greater complexity and fragility. This game is a biting commentary on the randomness of privilege. Those who start with simpler shapes, read born into wealth, or with fewer obstacles can scrape through without much worry. But those saddled with difficult shapes must work painstakingly, holding their breath to avoid a fatal crack. Throughout history, privilege has always been arbitrary. Whether it's the class systems in India, aristocracies in Europe, or racial inequalities in the US, some are handed circles while others labor under the weight of umbrellas. The honeycomb game exposes this cruel randomness, showing that life's chances are far from fair and survival often depends on luck. Tug of war, power in unity and the brutality of competition. Tug of war is a brutal test of physical strength, with two teams pulling each other across a line, the losers plunged into the void below. Historically, tug of war was more than a game. It was a symbol of conflict, of power struggles between kingdoms, armies, and empires. In ancient China, it was used as military training, with warriors using tug of war to build strength and resilience. In medieval Europe, tug-of-war tournaments symbolized alliances and feuds between villages. In Squid Game, the contestants quickly learn that brute strength isn't enough. It's teamwork, strategy, and unity that lead to survival. The elderly player, Il-nam's advice on positioning and teamwork allows Gi-hun's team to defeat a seemingly stronger opponent, but this game also shows the limits of cooperation. Sometimes even the best efforts fall short against forces too great to conquer. Tug of war serves as a metaphor for class struggles. Individuals might band together, fight for survival, but larger systemic forces often decide their fate. Marbles. The fragility of trust and the inevitable betrayal. The marble game, in which contestants are paired with partners only to be forced into a winner-takes-all situation, is perhaps the most heartbreaking. Historically, marbles have been a symbol of innocence, a simple game that dates back to ancient Rome and Egypt. In Squid Game, however, marbles become tokens of betrayal, forcing each player to choose survival over friendship, loyalty, or love. Here, contestants must risk everything on chance, odds, guessing games, and often deceit. One of the most agonizing moments occurs when Sang-woo betrays Ali, swapping Ali's marbles for stones. This betrayal isn't just about survival, it's a mirror to society's darker aspects, where desperation drives people to deceive those they care about. Marbles become a haunting metaphor for relationships under pressure. Just as in a high-stakes game, trust in real life is fragile, often fractured by personal gain or survival needs. The marble game asks a brutal question: when life stakes are high enough, are any bonds safe? Glass stepping stones, the cruelty of capitalism and luck. The Glass Stepping Stones game is both a game of luck and sacrifice. Players must cross a bridge made of glass panels, some sturdy, others fragile, with each player's leap potentially shattering beneath them. As contestants fall to their deaths, those behind them gain an easier path, knowing which panels to avoid. This game is a metaphor for capitalist society where some people are sacrificed as stepping stones for others' success. Historically, the concept of a stepping stone has dark implications. Think of sweatshops, unsafe working conditions, child labor, systems where the less fortunate bear the risks so that others can thrive. The glass stepping stones are reminiscent of historical class systems, where the lower classes were often sacrificed or endured harsher conditions for the comfort of the upper classes. The game is also a stark reminder of how the wealthy often stand on the backs of those below them. And with each leap, each contestant faces a random chance. Fate doesn't discriminate, and in the end, survival is often dictated by pure luck. The Glass Stepping Stones ask a grim question: how many people must fall for one to succeed? Squid Game, the brutal final showdown, and the cost of winning. Finally, the Squid Game itself, an offense-defense game played by Korean children, becomes the ultimate battleground. Here, two players fight to reach the head of the squid by any means necessary. The rules are simple: kill or be killed. The game is a reminder of zero-sum ideologies where only one person can emerge victorious, no matter the cost. The Squid Game's final confrontation represents the ruthlessness that often underpins success. It's a bare-knuckle brawl where every bond and rule is broken, reflecting society's winner-takes-all mentality. Historically, such contests echo gladiator battles in ancient Rome, where warriors fought for their lives while spectators cheered on. The final game is a brutal reminder that in a world obsessed with victory, survival often comes at the cost of one's humanity. In Squid Game, the sets and characters are more than just backdrops to blood-soaked competition. They are meticulously crafted metaphors that unravel the disturbing truths about humanity, power, and survival. The series, from its disorienting staircase labyrinth to the animalistic masks of the VIPs, captures life's paradoxes, its structured chaos, its false promises, and its brutal hierarchy. Let's delve deeper into this layered visual world. The pastel-colored, maze-like staircase feels almost whimsical at first glance, like a child's dream of an infinite playground. But its geometric impossibility and lack of clear direction evoke M.C. Escher's art, where stairs lead to nowhere and perspectives shift without logic. Contestants march up and down, winding through a maze they can't escape, much like life itself. The stairs represent a world designed by those in power to disorient the powerless. In life, the poor and desperate often navigate systems that are purposefully complex, like endless bureaucracies, debt traps, or socioeconomic hierarchies. The staircase becomes a visual metaphor for societal systems that make you run in circles until exhaustion or, in the show's case, death. Each brightly painted step mocks the contestants, reminding them that no matter how much they run, their destination is already decided by unseen architects. The animal masks worn by the VIPs, each intricately designed to resemble lions, eagles, owls, and more, paint these characters as predators at the top of life's food chain. But here's the irony: their wealth and power, symbolized by their masks, strip them of their humanity. The masks aren't to elevate them, but to reveal their base instincts, the eat or be eaten nature of survival. The lion mask VIP exudes dominance, the king of the jungle who feasts on the weak. The panther VIP, sleek and stealthy, embodies the opportunist who strikes without warning. The owl mask VIP is wise but detached, an observer insulated from consequence, yet behind their gilded facades, the VIPs are disturbingly primitive. They represent what unchecked wealth and power turn people into. Predators that gorge on the suffering of the lower classes for entertainment. Albert Camus once wrote, "Man is the only creature who refuses to be what he is." But here, the VIPs embrace their animalistic instincts while cloaking it in luxury, their masks a cruel joke. Money doesn't make them godlike, it makes them beasts. Dressed in bright pink jumpsuits, their faces obscured by black masks, the guards commit atrocities with chilling indifference. Their uniforms strip them of individuality, reducing them to faceless cogs in the violent machinery of the games. This anonymity gives them the freedom to act without accountability, much like online trolls or corporate workers hiding behind suits. The guards echo Hannah Arendt's concept of the banality of evil. They're not sadistic masterminds, they're workers doing their job, detached from the morality of their actions. The guards' anonymity parallels real-world systems where individuals act cruelly under the guise of following orders, whether in war, online spaces, or corporate systems. The pink, ironically vibrant and playful, serves as a mask for their bloody deeds, a reminder that evil doesn't always come dressed in black. The contestants, clad in identical green jumpsuits, evoke both a sense of unity and imprisonment. The color green, typically associated with life and renewal, becomes a cruel twist in this context. The players are alive, yes, but only to endure unimaginable suffering for a slim chance at wealth. Their jumpsuits resemble prison uniforms, a visual cue that they're trapped, not just in the game, but in life's brutal economic systems. The contestants' desperation mirrors the incarcerated, who often find themselves imprisoned by circumstances beyond their control. Financial debt becomes its own kind of prison. The players aren't criminals, they're victims of a capitalist system that chews up the weak and spits them out. Each game strips away another layer of their humanity, reducing them to numbers, fighting for survival in a system that was never designed to let them win. Henry David Thoreau once said, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation." In Squid Game, this desperation isn't quiet. It's screaming, bloody, and broadcasted for the entertainment of the rich and powerful. The contestants aren't just playing a game. They're trying to escape the crushing weight of insurmountable debt and a society that seems designed to watch them fail. Their desperation isn't born in the arena. It was cultivated long before they ever donned those green jumpsuits. Think about it. How many of us are running on this treadmill of life, barely holding on, chasing something we can't even define? For the contestants, the games are just a louder, bloodier version of the lives they already lived, paycheck to paycheck, one mistake away from losing it all. Thoreau's quiet desperation doesn't just sit in silence, it festers, it multiplies, and when you corner it, it lashes out. The horror of Squid Game isn't just the brutality of the games themselves, it's the realization that for many of these contestants, their lives outside the games weren't much better. The violence of debt, of systemic indifference, might not leave literal pools of blood, but it destroys lives all the same. How often do we look at our own lives and ask, what systems are quietly breaking us too? Aung San Suu Kyi once remarked, "It is not power that corrupts, but fear." And in Squid Game, fear runs through every interaction like poison. Fear isn't just a tool, it's the game master. It's the reason the guards, hidden behind their pink suits and faceless masks, do as they're told. They aren't inherently cruel, they're terrified, afraid of losing their lives, their anonymity, their tiny slice of security. Fear makes them follow orders, commit atrocities, and turn their humanity off like a light switch. It's the same for the contestants. Sang-woo doesn't betray Ali because he wants to. He does it because fear has stripped him of every choice, every moral compass. Fear turns the kindest people into survivors and survivors into monsters. Fear works like that in life too. Maybe not as dramatically. Most of us aren't choosing between betraying a friend and dying. But how often does fear push us into decisions we'd never make otherwise? Fear of losing a job, fear of missing rent, fear of failure. It's all there, dictating how we move, what we do, and what lines we're willing to cross. Fear doesn't just corrupt, it dehumanizes. It narrows the world until the only thing that matters is survival. Aristotle once declared, "Poverty is the parent of revolution and crime." In Squid Game, revolution isn't an option. The players are too beaten down, too tired to imagine a world beyond their current hell. But crime, that's everywhere. And not because these contestants are evil, it's because they're desperate. Poverty doesn't make people bad. It makes them desperate enough to survive by any means necessary. The players in Squid Game aren't villains, they're people forced into impossible situations by a system that abandoned them long before the games ever started. We see this in the real world all the time. People turn to crime because they're trying to survive a system that punishes them for being poor. When you can't pay your bills, when you're constantly drowning in debt, morality becomes a luxury. Squid Game magnifies this truth until it's impossible to look away. It's not poverty that's criminal, it's the systems that create and perpetuate it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The more men increase the value of things which they cannot control, the more they neglect those things which they can." This might as well be the tagline for Squid Game. The contestants put all their hope, all their humanity, into the promise of prize money. A golden ticket they believe will solve everything. But in their desperation to win, they lose sight of what they can control, their morals, their relationships, their dignity. The games strip them of everything that matters, leaving them hollowed out, shells of the people they were. Even Gi-hun, who wins the money, walks away broken. The prize isn't freedom. It's a cruel reminder of everything he's lost. And isn't that the tragedy of life too? We get so caught up chasing the things we can't control, money, success, validation, that we forget to protect what we already have. We sacrifice relationships, health, and happiness for illusions of security, only to find that the prize is emptier than we imagined. The real question Squid Game leaves us with is this: how much of ourselves are we willing to lose to play a game that's already rigged? And is survival worth it if it costs us our humanity? Let's review some comments that could provide further insight into the meaning of Squid Game. One commenter says, "I saw someone say this, but the VIPs were actually meant to represent us, the foreign viewers. The cringy remarks, betting on who lives or dies and making jokes, they were meant to be us. We were like the VIPs being spectators in a death game." This comment hits like a gut punch because as uncomfortable as it is, it's true. The VIPs with their gaudy animal masks and grotesque humor aren't just over-the-top caricatures of the ultra-wealthy, they're a mirror held up to the audience. Their detachment and casual betting on human lives eerily reflect how we consume violence as entertainment, munching on popcorn as people suffer on screen. It's a strange double layer of voyeurism. We watch the VIPs who are watching the contestants, all while trying to pretend we're not complicit in the same dynamic. Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote, "Hell is other people." In Squid Game, hell isn't just the brutal games, it's the layered voyeurism, the moral detachment that the VIPs represent. We, the viewers, sit comfortably in our living rooms, free from the stakes, yet we're entertained by the pain of others, just as the VIPs are. It's a disturbing reminder that cruelty doesn't have to be active. Sometimes it's passive, a quiet decision to look, to laugh, to accept. Another commenter says, nah, it does recontextualize the events of episode 6. Ilnam isn't just in the game for fun, like he says, he's in the game to confirm his worldview that humanity is inherently evil. The marble game is not a touching moment, it is Ilnam corrupting Gi-hun by giving him an opportunity to cheat. Ilnam wins the marble game when Gi-hun takes advantage of his dementia. The bet on the homeless man is the 7th game, hence the floor 7, and this is the final corruption of Gi-hun. Gi-hun loses the moment he takes the bet, as he is now betting on humans just as Ilnam does. He watches the man from behind the glass just like the VIPs do. This comment nails one of Squid Game's darkest truths. Ilnam is not just a voyeur of human suffering, he's a manipulator, orchestrating moments to validate his cynical worldview. Gi-hun's apparent win in the marble game is tainted. It's not a triumph of wits, but the erosion of his morality. When Gi-hun cheats, he doesn't just survive, he steps into Ilnam's world, where trust is a weapon and people are pawns. And isn't this what Ilnam truly wanted? To show that even the most compassionate person can succumb to desperation, that humanity is ultimately self-serving when the stakes are high enough. Friedrich Nietzsche said it best. Whoever fights with monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. Ilnam's ultimate victory isn't his survival. It's in making Gi-hun cross that line, a subtle, devastating shift that mirrors the systems in our own world. When survival becomes the only goal, the game changes. You don't beat the system, you become a part of it. The bet on the homeless man drives this home, with Gi-hun watching from behind the glass, disconnected just like the VIPs. How far are we really from Ilnam's worldview when we let systems of inequality perpetuate even as we claim to care? The last comment that we will review states, I don't get why everyone says the old man and the marbles was their breaking point. I accidentally read a comment that kind of spoiled the twist for me. So maybe that affected my opinion. But the two girls playing marbles broke me. When she said she had nothing to go home for and lost on purpose, she had such a rough life and she was still so sweet and selfless. That was the most heart-wrenching scene for me. This comment touches on one of the show's rare moments of grace amidst the chaos. Se-byuk and Ji-young's marble game is devastating not because of betrayal but because of selflessness. Ji-young, who has every reason to cling to life, chooses instead to let Se-byuk live, knowing she has more to fight for. It's a moment of quiet humanity in a show designed to strip humanity away. This scene reminds us of Albert Camus' observation. In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me, there lay an invincible summer. Even in the coldest, most hopeless moments, there is warmth, acts of kindness that defy the brutality of the world around us. Ji-young's sacrifice doesn't fit into Ilnam's worldview because it's not self-serving. It's an act of rebellion, a refusal to play by the rules of a game designed to destroy. Her choice forces us to confront the question, in a system that rewards cruelty, how do we hold on to compassion? Squid Game holds a mirror to humanity's darkest truths, our desperation, fear, and complicity in systems of suffering. It forces us to confront how survival, morality, and voyeurism intertwine, leaving us with one haunting question. If we're all players or spectators in a rigged game, what does that say about who we truly are? If this narrative resonated with you, do support us. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe. Thank you for staying with us to the end. See you in the next video on Plaid Chronicles.